Welcome, everybody, to the Running Up the Score podcast. My name is Sam Zandi, and with me today are my co-hosts, Jacob Liquid Magyar and Adam the Russell Rutter. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, I'm getting by. The Russell? Did you just make that up now? It's like I've never heard that before.
Yeah, no, I made that up now. Because I thought it would be weird to have Liquid as a nickname and then not have a nickname for you. So,
Well, it is what it is. So
how about introduce yourselves? This is our first podcast, so introduce yourselves a little bit.
Well, this is the captain, or the sheriff, also known as Liquid, speaking. And I'll talk to you soon. Over to Adam.
This is Adam the Russell Rutter speaking. I'm about 6'1", 160. Dirty blonde hair.
This isn't a dating profile. This is a podcast.
Some background.
Okay.
Give you some context.
Well, right off the bat, we talk sports here. That's why we're called Running Up the Score, and that's why the images that we have are sports related. So, right off the bat, we're going to jump into one of these sports, the NFL. And the NFL being pretty big right now. We're about halfway through the season, just past halfway for some teams, 9 games in, 8 games for others. And we're just going to do a rundown and do a little comprehensive look into the NFL, starting with the AFC East, where you have a team that's looking pretty strong. But are this year's version of the Patriots as impressive as they have been in years past? I'll start here with you, Adam.
I'm gonna say no. I mean, I don't know. It's probably a top 4 team in the last 10 years, but it's definitely not one of their more elite offenses, I don't think.
So what makes this team special compared to other years that they've
I guess I don't think they really are special. They're just like the Patriots, They show up and they're just super well coached. Brady is super efficient, doesn't make mistakes.
But is there anything different about this year compared to last year's team? I'll toss this over to you, Jacob.
Yeah, I think that's the exact difference. The talent around what is the Patriots, a.k.a. Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. And it's the only reason anyone could argue that it's more impressive or that in the past around what is that Tom Brady's doing it with less. I think it's just more impressive to see more talent, even though it seems like it would just be easier to win with more talent, so maybe that's less impressive. But
now, I will say, this year, more than any other year in that they've been a team, you have this emergence of a pretty strong player named James White. And yes, he was there during the Super Bowl run, and he was there during the lead up to how the team was developing towards their Super Bowl loss last year, and obviously he broke out in the Super Bowl last year. But this year he's been used pretty extensively now that they've gotten rid of players like LeGarrette Blount, Dion Lewis, among other running backs, and he's really coming to his own this year. And I feel like he actually is sort of a dynamic X factor for this team. And I feel like he actually might be sort of a difference maker compared to years past.
Oh, he absolutely is, and James White has definitely stood out because of all the other backs that have gotten hurt. And the Patriots are known for using a ton of different backs, and you never really know who's going to show up during whichever week. It depends on whatever Belichick is scheming. But James White, he's averaging less than 4 yards a carry, but he has 4 touchdowns. I think Sam, that's exactly what you said. He's a playmaker rather than a 3-down back.
Yeah,
I think he's got 6 touchdowns.
Oh, he has 6 receiving and he has 4 rushing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm speaking.
10. Yeah. But yeah, he's got 81 targets. That's insane. That's more than Michael Thomas this year, the wide receiver.
Considering the game we just saw to Michael Thomas last week, that's pretty impressive. But do you guys think that this team will compete for a Super Bowl once again this year, considering they made it to the Super Bowl the last 2 years?
I think it'd be stupid to say no. So, yes.
But will they make the Super Bowl? That's actually what I should ask more directly.
Yes.
I think the Chiefs might be able to beat them, but we'll see.
I
It's
would
more of a
also
gamble. You got to bet on Mahomes.
I would also place my bet. I mean, Mahomes is young, and my other candidate to beat out the Patriots is young. The Texans. I believe the Texans have a pretty good chance as well, considering they're on a huge run. But yeah, I think it would be tough to bet against Belichick, considering how he schemes things up and just kind of how they're still in the preliminary stages of mixing Josh Gordon into this offense. They could be dangerous when it comes to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think I'll. Oops, I just messed up. You have to really pay attention to if Gronk's playing or not.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on to another team in the division, another team that's vying for playoff relevancy this year. The Dolphins are 5-4, and do you think that this Dolphins team can actually make the playoffs? I'll start with you, Jacob.
No. The Dolphins can't make the playoffs. It's a fluke. It's a dream they're living. Who's their quarterback? Someone help me out here.
Brock Osweiler.
Yeah. Thank you. That's all really. I mean, the standout player I could think of is Kiko Alonso, and then a bunch of ridiculous circus plays.
And how about you, Adam? Well, we lost Adam for a second there, so let me put my input in here. I actually could easily see the Dolphins actually making it to the play. Like, not that I believe that this is a good team by any means, but it feels like the AFC in the last couple of years, like there's always that number 6 seed that just sort of sneaks in there, like the Bills last year, the Dolphins the year before, where they just kind of make it in there. And I would not actually think that this Dolphins team would make the playoffs, but if you look at the rest of their schedule, they have the Packers, which, say what we want, we are Packers fans, but Packers have been up and down this year. They have the Colts, the Bills twice, and the Jaguars. So out of their remaining 7 games, I think 4 are pretty much cream puff games. They also have the Vikings and the Patriots, but with 4 potential wins there, they could easily go 9-7.
Do you think they can keep up with, like, for the wild card with, like, the Chargers and the Jaguars, though, and the Bengals, perhaps?
Like I said, the AFC always has been pretty weird just because they have a weird, like, middle ground in years past. Obviously, it could. There are a lot of very good teams out there this year. But,
well, I think one wild card has to come out of the AFC West, right?
Correct, yes.
And then, I mean, look at the AFC South and the AFC North. I think the Bengals and the Ravens you have to respect in this race, and the Jaguars are nothing to laugh at.
Oh, no, the Jaguars are nothing to laugh at, but they've been pretty lackluster.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that when we get to the AFC South.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that I could easily see the Dolphins scratching out 4 or 5 more wins in their remaining schedule just because the Bills are pretty pitiful. And you just considering those 4 games that I said before, and they could, I mean, the Packers, they've been just so up and down. I could see them beating the Packers as well. Even if they don't beat a great team in the Patriots or the Vikings, they could scratch out 5 wins and go to 10-6.
Oh, it's 5 wins now? Jeez, man.
I'm saying 4 or 5. Like, I started from the beginning, 4 or 5 wins.
They get 2 wins.
Like I said, I think they can make it to the playoffs. I think there's potential there just based on their schedule. What do you say, Adam?
Based on Kenyon Drake's sporadic and inconsistent fantasy performance, I don't think this Dolphins team has what it takes. Also, they employed Jay Cutler as a starting quarterback for like 1 year after he got so apathetic he retired. Like, he was already apathetic as a player, and he left.
That was last. I mean, yes, obviously Brock Osweiler is their current quarterback.
I'm speaking more of like the
staff
organization. I have very little respect for like the Dolphins, the Bills, the Browns. It's just like cursed, you know.
I will say the Dolphins did make the playoffs 2 years ago. To everybody's surprise, but they still did it. Like, this team obviously has had a very up and down resume since Marino, but I don't know. I think that they could make the playoffs. Obviously, the Bengals and the Chargers are going to be hard to beat out, but there's potential there. Okay, then I guess we'll move on to the AFC North, where one of those strong teams actually resides. So we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ooh, Adam, you're getting feedback right now.
Sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, so we have the Pittsburgh Steelers at 5-2-1 leading the division there. And they've been a pretty solid team, but we want to focus more on the other three teams in the division. So starting with the Cincinnati Bengals, they just lost their top wide receiver, one of the best receivers in the league, A.J. Green. One of the most talented receivers of all time, in my opinion. Obviously hasn't put up the production to represent that, but he has the talent. Can the Bengals continue on this run that they've been on without A.J. Green?
I don't see it happening. I think Red Lightning or Red Thunder, what do they call Andy Dalton over there in Cincinnati?
Yeah, I don't know. He's some red-haired guy.
I don't think he's near what he is without A.J. Green.
Okay.
And in turn, the whole offense.
How do you see it, Adam?
Am I still getting feedback?
Oh, you just get feedback when I talk, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, even with A.J. Green, the Cincinnati Bengals are still 17th in pass yards.
Yeah, Tyler Boyd is really impressive as well. Plus, they have Joe Mixon. Last name starts with B. Backup running back Bernard.
Yeah, Giovanni.
Yeah. So they still have weapons even without Green. I think they can survive it. I don't know if they'll be the same team once they get into the playoffs, but I can see them squeaking it as a wild card.
Yeah, I mean, if it's against Miami.
Yeah.
I will say, though, their next string of games, you have the Saints, then the Ravens, the Broncos, who we'll talk about in the future, that played a little bit worse. Like, they're underperforming, but they've been performing pretty well. The Chargers and the Steelers, like, they obviously have games against the Browns, Raiders, Browns. But there are some pretty tough scheduled games left. Like, more than half their games are against potential playoff teams, which scares me a little bit down the rest of the schedule. So I think the next couple of games are going to be tough, especially the Saints and the Ravens. But those Broncos, Raiders, and Browns games, they could be pretty good. Plus, A.J. Green should be coming back after about 3 weeks, I believe.
It's just too hard to think, oh, don't worry, I trust Marvin Lewis to get this done.
He has brought him to the playoffs a lot. He just has no playoff success to speak of.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
Fair enough. Then
He's like a successful Hugh Jackson.
Speaking of another team that they're going to be facing soon, the Ravens. They've been pretty lackluster, 4-5 this year. They've obviously faced some pretty strong teams, but the season just hasn't been going as they expected, especially when they got off to that hot 3-1 start with 3 consecutive losses coming against the Saints, Panthers, and Steelers. I want to ask, whose seat is hotter, John Harbaugh or Joe Flacco's, to finish out this season, especially if they would not make the playoffs?
I think by virtue of job title, it's Joe Flacco. He's the one that everyone sees, the one that's performing, the one everyone's already talking about. Should Lamar Jackson be playing? Blah, blah, blah. How they had RG3, maybe he'll come back. I don't know. But I think he's a little safer than John Harbaugh, although their seats are both hot. Joe's is a little hotter.
What do you say, Adam?
Yeah, I got to agree wholeheartedly. I don't think I have much to add to that. That was spot on.
I would like to say John Harbaugh. He's had a ton, because he's had a ton of success, but in the past couple of years, it's been pretty disappointing. And sometimes it's just you need a change even after a lot of success. If things just sort of are in stagnation, especially in a great football city like Baltimore. But I think you guys are both correct, spot on this. Joe Flacco's definitely got the hotter seat. They drafted a quarterback in the number 1. First round, so it's like
can last over time. Like, his talent won't, in theory, diminish as quickly as a quarterback who plays on the field. So I think it depends on whatever the Ravens decide their future is. Can John Harbaugh go with that system that they're trying to implement and click with the new players that they think is their future?
I'll do a follow-up question to that. Do you guys think Joe Flacco has a job in the NFL if he is indeed let go from the Ravens?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, if someone needs a backup.
Maybe the Jaguars.
Does he have a starting job? That's what I should actually ask.
Yeah, he would start. I think he could go to the Jaguars and start.
Giants.
Jacob?
Giants.
You okay? So you both
I
believe that he could get a starting job?
I think it's super unlikely, but I could see it just because, like,
Well, some teams are desperate enough. I don't think it means he's that good. It's just like.
I mean, the Giants. Whoever said the Giants, they are employing Eli Manning, who is honestly only has a career off 2 Super Bowls. I'm sure they'd pick up Joe Flacco, who has a single Super Bowl.
I mean, what about the Buccaneers?
Yeah, there's a lot of teams that could use a quarterback. So yeah, no, I guess that was kind of a pretty self-explanatory question. Move on to the final team in this division. Has Baker Mayfield shown enough to garner his #1 selection in the NFL draft?
Well, I think he's pretty close. Yeah, I don't know. When I watch their games, I'm not really convinced of anything. It's just his sort of my opinion of him is pretty much flatlining. You know, he's throwing like 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception.
He caught
like
one.
200 plus yards. He only had that one real game-winning drive. And that was really early when he started, but after that they've kind of leveled out. They haven't really been that impressive.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that when judging Baker Mayfield, we have to be careful as to, like, I guess him versus like the organization. And I think his real test will be to overcome this overhaul and this crappy Browns organization. And if he can be resilient enough to let that not bother him and to like actually be good and bring the franchise up with him, I mean, that's the test and only time it's going to answer that.
I think he's shown enough to be a quarterback, but from what I've seen, like, for the #1 selection, you really want somebody that's super impactful. And just considering what the Browns had in terms of draft picks, things like that, I feel like they would have been better off picking, either trading back or picking like a Saquon Barkley or something that would really have solidified their team. I just feel it might have been too early to draft a quarterback into this dysfunction that you talk about, Jacob.
No, I agree, but I think we have to give him a little bit of a chance.
Oh no, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I think he's been a solid rookie quarterback, but I am concerned about his future, especially seeing quarterbacks like David Carr in the past, where they just they got shell shocked because of the organization and the teams that were surrounding them.
Yeah, I agree.
And then another question I had with that. What needs to be improved on the Browns to turn them into a playoff contender?
The whole like everyone that's involved that doesn't play on the field needs to be worked out. Like their whole organization. How about their head coach and offensive coordinator to start?
Would Mike McCarthy improve this team?
Yeah, would Hugh Jackson improve the Packers? I don't know, man. Mike McCarthy is a Packers coach right now.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, improve them. But
Adam, do you have any input on this?
You guys see Hard Knocks?
Yes, I did.
It's good TV, man. Made me sort of fall in love with the Browns. You know, I've been rooting for them all year. I was bummed out they traded Carlos Hyde
and Josh Gordon. I like Josh Gordon, although I think he's in a better situation.
Yeah, no, I think this will really improve him. I think we'll move on to the AFC South then. What are the main contributors that we've seen that have contributed towards this Texans 6-game winning streak, especially after they started 0-3?
2 things. Deshaun Watson and a healthy defense. J.J. Watt and all those killers on that defense are actually playing right now, and they're good. And Deshaun Watson makes them a legitimate offense, especially with Demaryius Thomas and DeAndre. Those 2 things are the keys.
Adam?
Yeah, I think when Will Fuller went down, they had to do something. They couldn't leave Deshaun hanging with basically one left. So Demaryius Thomas is going to be a big boost.
Now, do you guys think that Deshaun Watson is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL? Or where would you put him in the pantheon of quarterbacks in the NFL right now? That's a better question.
Pantheon's too big of a word for that little guy.
No, I'm just saying in the quarterback ranks now in the NFL.
I'm just saying, in that whole arena, like it's such a big arena, he hasn't made a big enough impact yet. If he can,
I was just talking about the 30 team, like the current quarterbacks in the NFL.
like talent,
Like, where would he rank among the current NFL quarterbacks?
near 10.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say around 10.
And is that good enough to lead this Texans team into a deep playoff run?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Well, and it's not that like he's about 10th, but he also brings other things to the table, like his playmaking ability. And
Okay. So we'll talk more about the playoff implication in just a little bit. But assuming the Texans win the South, how do the Titans stack up with the other wild card teams that are potentially in the picture in the AFC?
They don't.
Not at all.
Yeah. I'm pretty lukewarm on the Titans. I feel the way about the Titans that I feel about the Dolphins. Just very unimpressed. Thought Derrick Henry was going to break out this year, but he didn't really, hasn't really done as much as people expected. Mariota, I think, is average. Definitely not a playoff quarterback.
Fair enough. I mean, once again, I'll look at the schedule, and their schedule is tougher than a team like the Dolphins. It's a little bit easier than a team like the Bengals, but overall, it's just, I mean, you have some easy games, you have some hard games. I mean, you still have matchup with the Patriots, the Texans, and the Redskins. Then you also have Colts, Giants, Jaguars, Jets, and Colts. So I think that this is going to be one of those teams that will be there towards the end for the 6th seed, but I think they'll come up short. Just because I don't know what they are. It's hard to know exactly what this team is.
Yeah. No,
at any given week. And then the next thing, considering one of the teams that I've brought up a lot, and I just mentioned on schedules as a bad team, are the Jaguars the most disappointing team in the NFL this year?
No, the Browns are. I think the Jaguars are getting a little bit bullied by the media, man. They started really strong. They beat the Patriots, and then all of a sudden they lost by 3, and then they won again by 3 scores. They got doubled in score by Kansas City, and then they got blown out by Dallas, and Houston beat them. And now they have to really focus. But now that they have Leonard Fournette back, their offense will be better than 30th, which is around where I think it's ranked. I think 25 to 30. And then they have Indianapolis, Buffalo, Indianapolis again, Tennessee, Washington, Miami, and Houston. They have a decent-looking schedule, and I think they can start winning now that Fournette's back. These games will start turning their way. They have such a talented defense.
Adam? Okay, once again, I'll step in here. Yeah, I will say, yes, the Browns have been like a disappointment, but the Jacksonville Jaguars, up until this point, obviously they could do things, make the playoffs. They could do things to completely revert the negativity of this season that has gone on so far, especially this 4-game losing streak. But this year, considering that 2 of their wins are against the Giants and the Jets, the Giants being pitiful and the Jets being just a young and sort of, they're a team that there's not really much going on there. Like, you have Sam Darnold, who has some good stuff. You have a good, solid defense, but it's just too young and too early for them to really do anything. Yes, they have an impressive win against the Patriots, but this team was a playoff team last year, and this team was a team looking to take the next step. And obviously, it's hard to do that with Blake Bortles, and obviously with Leonard Fournette being out. But I do feel like this is one of the most disappointing teams in the NFL, especially with Houston starting 0-3, to not be able to pounce on that, take advantage of that. And I mean, losing to the Cowboys at that score and just not.
Yeah, I agree that they're disappointing, but I mean, I just realized the most disappointing team. It's right under our nose. I think I was trying to ignore it. It's the Packers. We have the legendary Aaron Rodgers. That's the most disappointing team. I don't even want to get into it.
I think we'll talk about that once we get to the NFC North. But I still think the Jaguars are more disappointing than the Packers once you really look at it.
The Jaguars and the Packers?
I'm saying, considering the Aaron Rodgers injury and just how Aaron Rodgers has played.
Packers fans.
We'll talk about it in a little bit, but no, I think that both teams are absolutely disappointing. I just we'll talk about the Packers more in the future, but I think the Jaguars. It's pretty close between the Jaguars and the Packers. It could go to either one, but I do think the Jaguars are, if not the second most disappointing team this year. And they could obviously turn it around, but to be behind the Titans at this point, who have basically, like, they lost Mariota, and who were they starting? Gabbert? And then they would bring Mariota halfway through game. Like, they were just like win games, and somehow they're ahead of Jacksonville. It's just pretty. It's just kind of hard to see, especially with Jacksonville starting 3-1. But Adam, do you want to put input on this?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of just a question to address something. So they play the Colts twice. How do you guys feel about the Colts?
I feel sorry for Andrew.
Yeah, no. I mean, Andrew Luck. I think that's the next question I wanted to roll into, but I just feel like the team around him hasn't been very, very good, obviously, and it's usually just the Andrew Luck show. But they've had a lot of close-ish losses, and I mean, but then again, their wins have just been, they had a win against the Bills and the Raiders, and then the Redskins before that, they just looked pretty bad. Maybe with this health and the O-line sort of getting a little bit more improved, they can run the rest of the season and do pretty good things, but
I just hope Andrew Luck survives 2 seasons, and then we can see him in the future. I hope he doesn't get his career ruined by some injury, because his offensive line is so atrocious.
Yeah. But I feel like their offensive line has improved compared to years past.
Well, yeah, it was easy to improve from years past.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
From 0 to 1 on a scale of 0 to 100, it's improving, but still 1.
Yeah, it's just pretty, and also just the surrounding cast. Like, their leading receiver is Eric Ebron, who is their like backup or third tight end to start the season. He was either their second or third because they had Jack Doyle in the lead spot, and until Jack Doyle went down, oh no, he's playing. I mean, Ebron's playing great, but until Jack Doyle went down, he was not their starting tight end. I just think with that I think that's more indicative on the wide receivers. It reminds me of like how the Chiefs a few years ago, where it was kind of Kelsey just leading the show and nobody else, no receiver could catch a touchdown. Yeah. Yeah,
Ty Hilton hasn't done too much this year, kind of surprisingly.
Yeah. But I think we'll... yeah, Adam is such a profile. We'll move on to the next division. AFC West. What has been most impressive about Patrick Mahomes as well as this Chiefs team as a whole?
Andy Reid. I can't believe he pulled it off, man. When they got rid of Alex Smith and they're like, we have all this young talent. Like, so many teams have so much young talent and draft quarterbacks, but he said, Patrick Mahomes is my guy, and he's got this strong arm, and we're actually seeing it, and it's worked out pretty much flawlessly as of now. And it's just insanely impressive what Andy Reid's doing.
It wasn't even just getting rid of Alex Smith. It was you got rid of Tom Bahali, you got rid of Derek Johnson, you got rid of a lot of really big veteran players in that team.
Yeah, and then the rookie stepped in and Andy Reid kept it together. So
Dontari Poe too, right?
And Marcus Peters, your number 1 corner.
Yeah, I was really confused by that move. I don't know how their defense is surviving.
Well,
plus they don't have Barry. Barry's not playing.
Jacob, I believe you were saying something.
No, I just praising Andy Reid again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, just considering that they got rid of a lot of really big talent, especially on the defensive end. Their defense has not been impressive. I mean, like, they've been impressive considering, but they're not like a shutdown defense. Just more like Patrick Mahomes just lights out when it comes to leading this offense and leading these very talented. Yeah, I mean, you have the talented Kareem Hunt, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill. You just have talent all around the board on that offense, and it really helps when your offense is that explosive. It kind of reminds me of those Green Bay teams, not the Super Bowl team, but the years after, like the 15-1 season, where you just had Aaron Rodgers leading a bunch of really talented offensive options with no defense really to speak of. And
for the Steelers too, or the modern day Steelers, I should.
Oh yeah, because it's just teams that could knock you out, but then you'd get counterpunched. Do you think this team is going to make a deep run in the playoffs, considering?
Yeah, they have a high-octane offense, and the defense is good enough and improving. I don't see why they can't.
How about you, Adam?
Maybe, on the brink. I don't think the wild card, maybe. I don't see him getting past that, though. That seems like a way overachievement for this team.
Okay. I mean, what I will say is that if you look at years past, and obviously that was an Alex Smith-led Chiefs, and that was a different team completely. Andy Reid teams tend to underperform when it comes to playoff time. Just something about the cold, something about the postseason. They can't really seem to ever get it done. And then on top of that, there are a lot of youth and not the strongest defense, which could come up and hurt them when it comes to facing a team like Bill Belichick's Patriots, or even the Houston Texans, who have a very strong defense, very strong pass rush, just things that could impact a young quarterback like Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, no, with Andy Reid's history and Patrick Mahomes' youth, it's a easy route to a loss.
Okay. I guess I'll ask this question. Moving on to another team in this division. Do you think this Broncos team is better than their record? And can they make the wild card?
They can make the wild card. They're not better than their record, even though they have 4 losses by 1 score each. I think, what is it, total up to only 16 total points or something like that. Their future just seems dull, especially with Demaryius Thomas calling them out. And, with Case Keenum at the helm, I just don't see it. I don't see it.
What do you have to say, Adam?
Yeah, I was hoping for a lot more from Case Keenum this year. Everyone else seemed down on him, and I couldn't understand it because he had gone to the Vikings and won 10 games, but he's been pretty mediocre, like the kind of game manager you don't really want to bank on as your playoff quarterback.
It also felt like, you felt like you just had you had a lack of energy coming from the players that were left in the team, because you had gotten rid of big players for that team, like Aqib Talib, other pretty strong players among their roster that they moved on from. Demaryius Thomas just felt like he was a ghost of himself at the time, and he showed up a little bit better when it came to the Texans the next week, but it just felt like a lot of these players were just ready to move on or do other things, where it was a hard situation for Case Keenum to even come into, because they weren't the strong defenses that won the Super Bowl in the years past, or made the Super Bowl in years past. It just feels like this team is obviously not they're not the best, but I do think that they could have pulled out some of these wins, especially watching that Texans game. They should have been able to pull out that game, because the Texans played safe. The Texans gave them a chance to open the door. But looking at the rest of their schedule, you have the Chargers twice. You still have a game against the Bengals and the Steelers. With those 4, I can't see them winning any of those 4. I can't see any record better than 6-10 for them. So I don't believe they can make the playoffs or make the wild card. Move on to the next question. Is John Gruden the worst acquisition in the past decade in this NFL?
I love John Gruden so much. It's way too early to tell, first of all. It's halfway through season 1 of 10 years, and it looks ugly, but with all the picks he has now, and with them possibly moving to Vegas, I think maybe he still has a shot to. Clearly he still has a shot to build up. I just think he needs time. Instant success isn't going to happen, but it's a 10-year contract, so he has time.
Adam?
Yeah, I want to believe he's like masterminding something. I did from the beginning when he was signing like 3 30-year-old running backs and bringing in all these old like Derek Johnson and like who else did he go after? Anyway, but like none of his moves made any sense. Like from an analytical perspective, it's like he walked in and just said, "I'm going to reinvent how NFL coaches think about, managing an entire team," and thought that was going to work. Like he just knew better from like coaching 15 years ago. So I don't think they're going to bounce back for. I think it's probably going to take another year, probably like 6-10 next year. Then maybe they'll have a chance to be a playoff team. But I don't really believe in Derek Carr either. So.
Yeah, no. From my perspective, I feel like Derek Carr. Adam, I think I'm echoing off you again. But I think Derek Carr. He showed a lot of things early in his career that made people believe that he could be a top quarterback in this league. And this team, and as a whole, it felt like the Raiders a couple of years ago. Like everybody was thought that they were the one team that could beat the Patriots, and then Derek Carr gets hurt, and it just turned their entire fortunes around. All of a sudden, this team went from being a top contender for the AFC to not a contender at all. So I think John Gruden probably saw that he just saw the writing on the wall with this team, and he tried to get as much talent out of it as possible. The complete teardown is slightly confusing because in the NFL you sort of you haven't seen, like in the MLB, you've seen a lot of teardowns and quick rebuilds and retools. The NFL, you haven't seen a ton of these sort of retools and quick rise to power, or quick rise to ascension to the top of the boards out of nowhere. So I question his moves, and I kind of question. It makes you look back at his year, like when he won the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay, where he just took over Tony Dungy's team, and you kind of, if it doesn't work out here, it kind of will put a stain on his career forever. So I'm willing to give him time and to see what he'll do in the future, but I'm skeptical as to if he was the right hire or the right move, because if his moves don't work out, he could set the already pitiful Raiders, who didn't have a winning season in over a decade, even further back, which is perplexing. Jacob, any comment on that?
Well said.
Fair enough. Okay. So I think we'll just quick go through the AFC. What team do you think will make it out of the AFC to the Super Bowl, based on what you've seen so far? Start with you, Jacob.
Drum roll, please. Can we get our sound guy get a drum roll going? It's gonna be the Patriots. I mean, duh.
And what's your reason for the Patriots?
Because it's the right answer. I mean, it's just correct. Yep.
Yeah, it's the Patriots. It's always the Patriots.
Anyone else is crap.
I'm going to say the Texans.
Yeah, it's a
but it's mainly like, I think the Patriots are the obvious answer, and I think the AFC Championship game will be between the Patriots and probably the Texans.
Well, then let's ask that question, Adam. What do you think the game will be? Who versus who to go to the Super Bowl in the AFC?
I would guess the Chiefs and the Patriots.
Yep. See, that's what I would guess too.
Yeah.
The Chiefs, but everyone else is like us. Like if we're like 51% plus goes to the Patriots on every matchup. Like the Patriots are just.
I think the Texans have enough defensive firepower to win a game against the Chiefs. I think they have enough defensive firepower to beat the Patriots, because the Patriots, watching them against the Packers, they weren't any, like they won the game, but it felt like an average Green Bay defense could shut them down until they started whipping out trick plays. And I think a better, more well-coached defense would be able to shut down those trick plays.
Yeah, well, yeah, sure. We looked okay. They still scored 30+, and guess who wasn't playing for the Patriots?
Yeah, Gronk, obviously.
I said, depending on the Patriots' health, if Gronk and Brady are playing, that's it.
But I think the Texans' defense has enough firepower to match up well
Yeah, and I think the Chiefs have enough offensive firepower to match up well, but the Patriots still have the edge.
Fair enough. I believe the Texans. You guys believe the Patriots, and we'll just move on from there. Moving to the NFC. Are the Redskins a team that can compete for a Super Bowl? I'll start with you, Adam.
No.
What's your reasoning for that?
The Redskins, you said?
Yeah, it's the Redskins.
Part of it is Jay Gruden. He just has like this resting face. This like it's not like a bitch. It's like a pouty face that he always has on.
And when you lose, just let's see.
Yeah, I guess he's usually losing. Well, I don't know. Well, they're 5-3 this year.
5-4, I believe.
5-4. Okay. Oh,
They're 5-3.
NFC East.
5-3. Okay.
5-3. Yeah, I don't really think they're a threat. They could easily win the NFC East, but that's just because the Eagles really haven't shown up this year. Cowboys suck. Giants are terrible, obviously.
You guys think that the Redskins don't have a website? They can't string 3 W's together.
But they did win 3 games in a row. 3 W's in a row. They beat the Panthers, the Cowboys, and the Giants in 3 consecutive weeks.
Yeah, but when I Googled Redskins jokes, this was the only good one. So.
Fair enough. Okay, but yeah, how about you, Jacob? What do you think about this?
About the Redskins?
Yeah, the Redskins.
I think that they are flat. They're overrated. They've just like happened to win a few games where other teams haven't won those one-score games, so their record doesn't look horrible. But with the Eagles and the Cowboys, I think are a threat to steal like a win from them. Maybe they're a wild card team, but they're not going anywhere.
What have you thought about Adrian Peterson this year, Jacob?
He's done great, but he's not enough, and he's not quite consistent enough. I mean, he's done great though. I can't take that away.
Adam,
you stupid.
Could not disagree more.
What was that sound in the back?
Yeah, I got a soundboard.
Oh, okay.
No beef with the AP comment. That was very reasonable.
Yeah.
I am though because he was on my fantasy team, and I dropped him when he was still a free agent, and then down goes Geis, and boom, now he's like a top 5 fantasy running back.
Yeah,
just crazy. It's like
and a top 5 NFL running back.
No, he's been very good this year. My thoughts on the Redskins are I believe that they're a team that could do something in the playoffs, not a Super Bowl team, not even I don't even think they'd make it to the NFC Championship, but I think that they could get a win in the playoffs just if Jay Gruden, while he has not impressed me as a coach per se, the combination, if they're healthy, of Adrian Peterson and Chris Thompson is pretty interesting with the pass catching ability and then the running ability, and Alex Smith has been solid, but he's obviously a pretty poor playoff quarterback. So I think they can make some noise, and I do think that they'll win the NFC East because the Eagles have just been underwhelming, and the Cowboys, they lost to the Titans. The Titans. Yeah, the Titans are.
Cowboys aren't even worth mentioning. Sorry, I mean Giants.
Yeah, and then the Giants are just piss poor. So.
I already forgot who they were. That's how irrelevant they are.
Yeah. So I think that the Redskins will win the NFC East, and they could win a game, but in the playoffs. But no, it's just they're one of the.
By the motto of anything's possible, I could see it.
I have been impressed with the fact that the Redskins have been able to take the lead in the division. That is what I'll say, considering that they have a negative 12-point differential.
Yeah, it sounds like a real good playoff team.
Yeah.
Damn hot take.
Will Jason Garrett be fired?
Only if Jerry can find another puppet.
Good comment. Adam?
I want to hear more about this puppetry. What is there?
Jim Jones is really the coach of the Cowboys, right? I think Jason Garrett's just a bitch that was okay with being pushed around by Jerry, and that's why he's still here. So if Jerry can't find another puppet, I mean, then Jason will stay. But no, obviously Jerry Jones is going to throw himself under the bus before he throws Jason Garrett under the bus, aka fire him. But I don't know, he's pretty complacent, and Jerry likes that. He's a dominant soul.
He's a dom.
Okay. Then I guess we'll move on to. Well, let's move to the NFC South. We'll skip over the North for now.
Sensitive.
Was the Dez Bryant signing good for the Saints?
Duh. I think with Drew Brees and Sean Payton, they've been around forever, and with that locker room and culture that they built, it's such a solid place that like the rookies came in and they're already amazing. Alvin Kamara and I'm blanking on that defensive back's name.
Lattimore, Mark.
Yeah, Marshawn. And I think Dez Bryant, his problem was like, oh well, he's gonna be a distraction and stuff. But I think the Saints are too strong for Dez to come in and ruin it. So then you just look at the talent aspect, and he's an improvement to go next to Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. And now that Mark Ingram, the third or second or whatever he calls himself,
the second,
they just look damn good. And Dez Bryant can't really ruin that if he tried. He could throw one play and then they'd cut him. So,
yeah, and they got him for $1 million and a quarter, and like I think 600,000 is guaranteed only.
More than I'm making.
It's like 500,000 in incentives. So if he sucks, they really don't have that much to lose even.
Okay, and then another question I wanted to ask: if Drew Brees continue, like how long can Drew Brees keep this up, and how long would he have to keep this up to be considered in the discussion for like top 5 quarterback of all time?
I don't know about all those, how long he could keep it up, but I don't really know enough about his routine and process and body. I think he's going to play for a couple more years, and he got robbed last year. I think if he wins a couple Super Bowls, like strings together to like 2 to 3 Super Bowls, we're talking about it, but he's just kind of like a Peyton Manning almost if he wins another Super Bowl. Drew Brees, that is kind of a great regular season quarterback, but always getting screwed.
Adam? Okay. Adam?
Yeah, I agree with Liquid.
Okay. Yeah, we'll move on to the next topic. What can be made of Jameis?
Back.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Sorry, continue with the Jameis Winston. Actually, I'd rather talk about that.
Okay.
I'd rather never talk about him, but let's go.
What can be made of Jameis Winston's career so far, and does he have a future in the NFL?
Big fat disappointment, and probably someone will give him a chance, but his future is bleak.
Adam, you seemed eager to jump on this Jameis Winston conversation. What do you have to say about him?
Yeah, I'm thinking, what if? Like, what are Jameis Winston's best years? Like 30 touchdowns, like 15 interceptions?
Yeah, like a modern gunslinger.
Yeah. But what if he went to, like, the Giants, you know? That could be a really potent offense.
That's what I'm thinking. I think someone will give him a chance, but you just don't think he can.
I don't think he'll be that good, but I think he could
weird.
take him to, like, 9.
He can't lead a team. He's weird. He's just a freaking weirdo, and he's not even that good.
He also just had a weird history coming into the NFL with all of those allegations, the crab legs robbery, like all the stuff that happened to him in college just always plagued him. And I think that it always led to him being this kind of weird, weird quarterback.
He's straight up weird, dude. He's weird and not that talented. I don't think he's going to be anything.
Yeah, I don't see much of a future for him, but man, he's only been in the league for just over, this is his 4th year in the NFL. He's only 24.
Yeah, just because of his physical body. Like, he's an NFL quarterback technically, and he's 24 years of age.
Yeah, but I do feel like think about this. For him being 24 years old and how much baggage he has, he's already been suspended for the league for 3 games this year. He had all that college problems. He got benched for Ryan Fitzpatrick. And as much as Ryan Fitzpatrick has had like a career, he's had a nice.
He's magical.
Don't dig on Fitzmagic.
No. I love Fitzmagic. He was fantastic for the New York Jets a few years ago, and he's had a nice journeyman career. But just the fact that he was supposed to be this franchise quarterback, he's starting to almost remind me of another former Tampa Bay Buccaneer, Josh Freeman. which Josh Freeman, we all saw how he just flamed out of the NFL.
Yeah, I think Josh Freeman was like more of like a failed Cam Newton.
Yeah, that's true. But just the fact that like Josh Freeman had he had a solid year and he was kind of okay, and then he just kind of was gone.
Sounds like Dak.
Like he's not even a backup anymore, right? Like he's still in his 20s. He's not even a backup anymore.
Yeah, I haven't seen his name on any roster in a long time.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll move on to the next conference, the NFC West. Are the Rams the most complete team in the NFL?
No, they might be the most Hollywood talented, but I think the Chargers, honestly, are more complete.
Okay. And why do you say that?
I just was looking at the rosters position by position, and I just think the Chargers have more depth, honestly. I think the Rams have a lot of one-year, high-money, talented guys that now that they're clicking, like it looks great, and they're like probably the most talented team. But the most complete team, I don't know. I just don't think they are. They don't have the depth. Like, what if something happens to Gurley? Like, I don't know.
I will say, did you see that play that their backup running back Brown made?
Yeah, no, he does look like a stud. That's why I kind of hated when I said what happens to Gurley.
What happens to Gurley? But no, I do agree in that sense. Adam, what do you have to say? Do you think that they're the most most complete team in the NFL?
Yeah, I think on defense they're like a 10th overall defense or so, right?
Sure.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they're like elite, which is surprising to me because the talent they have on that team, they should be top 5 for sure. But I think I would say they're the most complete team, mainly because their offense is the best. Well, second best to the Chiefs, but their defense is
a defense.
Yeah, right. That's like average, like 5th when you combine the offensive defensive ranking. So I mean, that's pretty crazy. Be 5th overall in both. That's pretty complete.
And what I will say is like they have a lot of talent, but they do have a very underwhelming outside or like linebacking core. And one thing that I feel has been holding them back pretty heavily is the loss of Aqib Talib, which like the question you asked, Jacob, like what happens if so and so gets hurt? What happens if Aqib Talib gets hurt?
Because if you want to go deep in the playoffs, then people are going to get hurt. It's gonna, and you have to have backups ready. And I just think other teams will have more depth.
Yeah, well, I will say the Aqib Talib injury definitely helps them in the fact, like it'll help them in the long term because like once you get Aqib Talib back, it's good to know that he's there and a solid guy. But it was good to see. It was good to see like the fact that Sam Shields can't be a starter and Marcus Peters is a little underwhelming, and that you need to start developing these other guys. And I feel like they have sort of mixed things in, and this loss to the Saints will definitely help them. But what were you saying, Jacob?
I don't know. I disagree. I mean, if you're looking like philosophically, maybe the loss to the Saints will help them, but a loss does not help a football team.
Okay, fair enough. I just think like it helps them see where their weaknesses are, because I think they have.
I mean, if you're the Browns, I mean, if you get, that's
I feel like
way to look at it.
Yeah, no, I feel like for elite teams, sometimes when you're kind of just rolling along, you like. I just remember the Packers that won 15-1. It just kind of felt like they didn't really have any weaknesses until they had weaknesses. It just kind of like all of a sudden, oh wait, our defense is absolute garbage, just out of nowhere. Like, obviously it was there the whole time, but people didn't, like fans especially, didn't really think about it.
Yeah, and I don't know about Jared Goff. Did you guys hear that he can't really use his phone anymore? He can't find the receiver.
He can't do what? Oh, he can't find a receiver. Are you whipping out these jokes, really?
These are all organic, I can tell.
But I do think that the Rams are the most complete team in the NFL. I just think with those 3 receivers, 3 of the they're super talented at receiver. They're super talented at running back. Goff is very talented. And their defense, I feel, is going to continue to improve. They're just a bunch, but they're like you said, a bunch of one-year hitmen that are still trying to learn how to play together. And Dante Fowler Jr., I think, will help them a lot with their rush.
Another even newer addition. I don't see them mesh.
They may never fully mesh, but I feel like they're extremely talented, especially with that.
I said they were the most talented. I just don't think they're their most complete roster.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Moving on, I believe Adam wanted to talk about Josh Rosen. So, where does Josh Rosen rank among the league's young quarterbacks, Adam?
From what I've seen, last, like dead last.
I agree. Why?
Just has not performed. That offense has been miserable, and that's with David Johnson, Fitz, who still could be probably a 1,000-yard receiver, even at like 36 or however old he is. They have
Christian Kirk and Jermaine Gresham.
Yeah, Jermaine Gresham. I'm not crazy about him. There's one more receiver that they have, but anyway, yeah, and he's done absolutely nothing. Like, I've seen him throw 2 pick sixes, and I've watched about 6 minutes of gameplay of Josh Rosen.
Fair enough.
Wouldn't you, in Josh Rosen's defense, I mean, I agree with you if we're talking off the record, but this is on the record. So maybe we need to watch more than 6 minutes before we say he's the worst.
Yeah, but I think even stat-wise, he's just the worst.
He's the worst.
Yeah, no, I think, like, especially if you're looking at young quarter.
Hey, who did Buffalo get?
Peterman.
He's pretty trash.
Peterman is the worst quarterback to probably ever start in the NFL.
No, Rosen's a god. Nathan Peterman, worst.
Nathan Peterman.
Or whatever.
He's not a rookie.
No, yeah. I did say young quarterback, so I should have. But throw Nathan Peterman to the side. No, I do agree that, I mean, I feel like I've seen more out of Josh Allen this year, who just, like, he was considered the very raw prospect. And a quarterback like Josh Rosen was supposed to be a more polished quarterback, especially after playing several years at USC and playing in many high-profile games. And
with that cloak of arrogance he wears.
Yeah, that cloak of arrogance. But just the fact that they haven't been able to get anything out of David Johnson, really, at all this year, it's just really sad to see that team.
Because they had so much promise, but yeah, they're trash.
Like, their team was so good. The only thing that they kept lacking was that all their quarterbacks would get hurt right at the playoffs every year. It was like week 16, they'd lose Carson Palmer and, like, who else did they have? They would lose like 3 quarterbacks within the last 2 weeks of the season every year. But it's really sad to see that demise of the Cardinals.
Yeah, the once good Cardinals.
The once good Cardinals. Okay, so I'd say we have about 10 minutes left. We can quickly run through the NFC North. I would like to ask, is Khalil Mack the best move of this year?
No, I think I'm going to throw this one out here, and you guys are going to give me shit for this because it's kind of a loophole. I think the re-signing of Drew Brees is bigger. So Khalil Mack is a freak, right? What do you guys think is his rank? Where does he rank among leaders in the league in terms of sacks?
It's not high.
Yeah, he's 23rd. He forces turnovers, but he's hurt. He doesn't even have that many sacks. He only has 20 tackles. I don't think.
But that is pretty normal for pass rushers.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty normal. Like we're not arguing that he's not amazing or like transcendental. I'm just saying it's not like it can't be. It's not the best move. I think that Drew Brees re-signing was huge, making sure he's committed to play again. And
Adam,
look at.
What do you have to say?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like technically Drew Brees is the biggest move, but I don't think it's the most like. It's not the best move, in that it's not the most ambitious. I think going after Mack was like they really went for it. Re-signing Brees is like a no-brainer, but I think Mack, I think he's forced like 4 turnovers already.
More. Yeah,
that's insane, man. That's like defensive MVP level if he's playing all year. So I mean,
he's not. Oh, he won't play all year. What about trading Alex Smith to see the emerging of the Chiefs offense?
That's an absolute bold move. But this is what I'll say about this. It's like signing Drew Brees was a fantastic move, and that but the Saints were a good team, and now they've looked even better. The Chiefs were a good team, and now they're looking even better. The Bears were the seller of the NFC North, and it completely changed their fortunes to the fact that they're competing for the division title. It's up to this point. with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. Well, he's had some solid games. He's had many games where he's only had to throw for like 150, 100, like 200 yards, just because of how like the defense as a whole, just kind of changed the culture of the team as a whole, which is where I do think Khalil Mack was the most impactful and
it was the most impactful, but it wasn't like the best move of this decade or whatever.
I said year. I think it's the best move of the year, just this year. That was the question. The best move of the year.
Thus far, I mean, maybe. I mean, it improved the Bears the most, but I think the best move of the year needs to go to the move that will eventually lead to the Super Bowl win. So whatever move equals that, which we will see in the future, is the best move, and it's not going to be Khalil Mack because the Bears aren't winning the Super Bowl.
Fair enough. I agree with you. It's not going to lead to a Super Bowl, but I do think it did change the Bears.
Yeah, no, it was the most impactful, but it's not the most important because you play to win a Super Bowl. You don't play to be like slightly respected.
Fair enough. Next, has Kirk Cousins been worth the money that they paid him this year?
Yeah, he's put up the numbers. He's done his job. He's better than Case Keenum and Bradford and Teddy and all those guys. I think that was a good signing. He's worth the money.
What about you? What do you have to say, Adam?
Yeah, obviously I don't think the team's lived up to expectations, but I think if you were to ask management if they would sign him again to the deal after his performance so far, they'd say, like, absolutely. So I think you got to say it's worth it.
I think that, I mean, to say that they haven't performed up to par, it's like they had lost to the Bills, obviously, and that was miserable. That was a terrible loss. And they tied the Packers, which now looks much worse as the season has gone on. But their other two losses are to the Saints and the Rams, probably the two best teams in the NFC. So I do think that the Minnesota Vikings have definitely slotted themselves in that number 3 spot, probably in the NFC. And I think Kirk Cousins is a major reason for that. He just everything that Adam Thielen has been in the years past, Kirk Cousins has just made him better. So yeah, I believe he's worth the $88 million guaranteed, right?
Time will tell.
Okay, we're gonna skip out on the Lions, and we're just gonna talk about the Green Bay Packers, to the moment that you all dreaded. What has been the most disappointing part about the Packers this year?
Our record.
Yeah, but what has led to that disappointing record? Like, what is the thing that has the most impact that has led to this 3-4-1 record?
I want to say the vibe, or that the aura of Aaron Rodgers, like the vibe around his godliness, is just not clicking. Like, remember when McCarthy and Rodgers were jumping around, chest bumping Jordy Nelson, smiling, those nice teeth, dude? I haven't seen that in so long. There's so much angst. Everyone hates each other. We're trading everybody. No one knows if we're freaking rebuilding or not. I don't know what the hell's going on, but I don't like it.
What do you have to say, Adam?
Yeah, when Mike Pettin came in, I had such high hopes, but our defense has been so average.
I think that we expected that. I'm way more disappointed in the offense.
Yeah, if I had to talk about the team, I feel like the most disappointing part has been, and not to downplay, but I feel like Aaron Rodgers has been fairly disappointing, and obviously he's had the knee problem, and that has impacted him. But his throws have just been off for the most part this year.
Some of them have been off, but you can tell because after the play he starts cursing and he does that thing where he looks to the ground and kind of convulses, and that's him yelling at the receiver for doing the wrong thing.
Fair enough, but
they get a dig in, and they choose to dig, and he threw it to the end.
Yeah, but I do think it's a combination. I've been disappointed with Aaron Rodgers' play.
Maybe it's leaving. Yeah.
Slightly, obviously he's still but that's just because I have such a high expectation of what Aaron Rodgers can do. But I've also been extremely disappointed in the coaching, but mainly Mike McCarthy in the offensive coaching.
Yeah, Pettin has time to prove himself.
Yeah, Pettin, I feel like he just needed some time to implement his defense, and the young guys that he definitely had input into drafting guys like Jair Alexander and Josh Jackson, who have been really good. Both of them, I feel, are. If those two, I've said this every time I've seen them, they drafted 2 cornerbacks in the past when they drafted Demarius Randall and Quentin Rollins back to back. This just feels like a completely different. Like it just feels like they drafted those 2 for need, and these 2 it feels like they drafted them for talent.
And need.
And need, but like they got the talent part of it too.
Yeah, no, they're talented young guys.
And I think that this defense is going to turn around. It just feels like they're missing that one piece, and that one piece would be Muhammad Wilkerson.
Or Khalil Mack.
Or Charles Woodson.
Or Charles. Yeah, but I feel like really like they're missing a piece up there up front, which Khalil Mack could have been it. But I feel like Muhammad Wilkerson, if they just had him.
Yeah, if Kentrell Bryce didn't hurt him, that's a whole other thing. But I think our Kenny Clark and Mike Daniel, that's like one of the strongest parts of our defense. I think the veteran leadership is like what we're missing. It's somewhere at linebacker or safety. It's what is it? Tremont Williams? Is he our Charles Woodson now? Like,
no, I absolutely agree with that. I'm not saying like they're one piece, but I'm saying like with
they're
up front they're very strong. But when they had Muhammad Wilkerson, Kenny Clark, and Mike Daniels up front, like. Once they lost Muhammad Wilkerson, they lost the depth because Dean Lowry was the guy that could mix in and fill in there. Now it's like you need Dean Lowry to play, and you don't really have those backups, and that kind of makes it so basically the defensive linemen have to play almost every single play.
Yeah, I mean, and like, what's the difference between the Green Bay Packers and a dollar bill?
To tell me.
Well, you can get 4 quarters out of a dollar bill. You can't get that out of the Packers.
Yeah, fair enough. Has there been anything aside from obviously the young corners, which we talked about, anything that has impressed you about this team?
The young secondary, the fact that I know some of their names means that they're doing something slightly impressive.
Let me more poignantly focus this question. What do you guys think of Aaron Jones this year?
Oh, first of all, great word. What was that? Pointy and Lumful? Is that type of word?
Just continue.
After he hotboxed his breakfast burrito last year and was suspended for a pair of games, I was really thinking he'd come back and be great. But he's been good, not great. That the first week after Ty was traded meant that him and Jamal Williams got more of a focused role. It was more of them, those 2, instead of the 3, so they can get into a real rhythm. And his rhythm was a fumble. That was the swinging point of the game versus the Patriots. And that's the last thing I can remember that guy doing.
Fair enough, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Jones has looked really good. I think he's second in average yards per carry last I saw, like 6.1 or something.
He's averaging 6 right now.
Very good running back.
Which is like, it completely baffles me because I don't know how our offense is not scoring like.
It's got to be the play calling.
No, I think.
Right?
But continue, Adam.
No, I mean, the open conversation. It must be the play calling, right? I mean, we have the talent everywhere on offense.
It is. Why don't we put Ripkowski in and run an I formation and give Aaron Jones?
Do we even have Ripkowski anymore? Like, obviously we like, but it's
right. I don't know. Yeah, no, exactly. I don't like. I just don't see this like spread talent, like modern day offense. Like, just give Aaron Rodgers a freaking running game. I formation it up. Like, I don't want to see this pistol bullshit.
I will say, Aaron Jones, every time he touches the ball, it just feels like electric. Like, he there's something different. He's so quick.
He's the Jamal Williams lightning.
Yeah, so he just seems very quick, very, like, and it's not even just the play calling. It's, when Aaron Jones came back, he was the third in rotation. He would be so possession 1, it would be a Tyron Montgomery or Jamal Williams. Then the other one, possession 2, and then Aaron Jones. And it felt like Aaron Jones had to, claim back his role. And then finally, he's the most productive. He's only had 58 rushing attempts this year.
That's the answer then. What the hell is that?
Yeah, he's only had 8 receptions and 58 attempts rushing this year. It's like he averages 6 yards a carry, but he never gets the ball, and it makes no sense.
It's terrible.
It's because we're busy calling crappy plays to our backup tight ends and throwing it to the other side of the field because someone ran the wrong route.
Yeah, but obviously the fumble shows up in everybody's mind because it's that's the last thing that he's done. But he's only had 1 fumble this year.
He's very good, but in the circumstances dictated him to be great. We needed him to be great, and he wasn't. So that's how I'm judging him. He's very good, but in that moment he didn't perform.
Yeah, And even then, too, like, in that moment, like, it's a 13-yard run, and then he drops. Like, that's the thing that's most disappointing, because it comes off something that was so... Because it was like a 13-yard run down to the 20, where you're like, they're going to score. Like, there's no way they don't score here.
Yeah, well, hopefully the Packers score versus the Miami Dolphins, which is coming to this Sunday.
Yeah.
Well,
if we can't stop Brock Osweiler, we have serious troubles.
I'll be starting Brock Osweiler in my fantasy league.
True.
But,
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all my fans.
But, hey, we're not done yet. Anything else you want to talk about the Packers this, anything else you want to bring up about the Packers, either one of you?
Hail Rodgers.
I just want to forget.
Okay, then the final thing we should talk about, who's coming out of the NFC to match up against the Patriots in your regard? I said the Houston.
The Houston. Yeah, the Houston's pretty good.
Yeah, the Houston.
I'll let Adam go first because I think my answer might be shocking and disturbing to some viewers. Adam?
Okay, not to be a homer, but I got to take the Packers.
Damn it, Rutter.
I think if we sneak in, anything can happen.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah, and other team, I'd probably have to choose. Saints.
Yeah, the
I like to
Saints.
read a lot this year.
Saints are like the clear competition for the Pack, but it's going to be Pack Patriots.
Yeah, I'm going to shock you guys even more. I think Fitzmagic sneaks into the playoffs and then somehow makes a run and beats Drew. No, I think it's the Saints. I think it's the Saints, absolutely. I just think they did just beat the Rams. Obviously, Akeem Talib wasn't there.
No one said Rams. Cool.
Yeah. I think the Rams could easily do it, but Michael Thomas.
And what about Chris Thompson and the Redskins?
I don't know. I have nothing to say about them. Those are questions, man. Those are posed questions, not my beliefs. But yeah, no, I just think the Saints. Michael Thomas is pretty much uncoverable. I don't know. He seems unbelievable right now, and Alvin Kamara is fantastic. Mark Ingram has been lackluster since coming back, but I'm sure he'll be able to find his role in the offense soon. And that defense really has stepped up. So, yeah. This is, we're going to end this week being a fully NFL-centric show. Next week we'll mix in some NBA and MLB. But thank you for listening to Running Up the Score. For my co-hosts, Adam Rutter and Jacob Liquid Magyar. Thank you for listening. And anybody else want to say anything?
Shout out Liquid Nation. Keep it real. Keep it 100. I'll see y'all next week.
I'd also like to shout out Liquid Nation. We'll keep it tighter for you next week. Later.
Out.